If someone says, "I love you," but acts as if they have no choice, is that love or imprisonment? He claims to be free, yet he keeps coming back. He insists he doesn't want anything serious, yet he plans trips with you. He speaks of other paths, but he sleeps by your side. What goes on inside someone living that kind of contradiction? And most unsettling of all, why does that say so much about a love deeper than he himself can admit? Jean-Paul Sartre, a 20th century French philosopher, said that man is condemned to be free. That condemnation is not a punishment, but a reminder. There is no essence that determines our choices. We are what we make of what others have made of us. And in love, this reveals itself with brutal honesty. It's easy to say you love. Hard is to assume the freedom to love, with everything that implies. Because to truly love is not to find shelter. It is to expose yourself to the wind, to uncertainty, to the constant possibility of being left behind, and yet, to choose to stay. Today, we will explore 7 behaviors that reveal when someone is more in love than they imagine. These are subtle gestures, glaring contradictions, silent choices, and each carries an uncomfortable truth. Authentic love is not conscious at the start. It takes hold within us before we have words to name it. First sign, when he contradicts himself and doesn't even notice. This is the terrain of bad faith, a central concept in Sartre's philosophy. Bad faith is not lying to others, it is lying to oneself. It is when someone acts one way and thinks another and believes both. He says he doesn't want commitment, but feels jealous when you disappear. He claims everything between you is light, but gets upset when you share too much with someone else. He constructs a rational discourse, but lives in disagreement with it, and he doesn't notice. Or he notices, but prefers not to confront it head-on. He is in love, but can't admit he has lost control. After all, for Sartre, love is also the risk of losing the center of gravity of one's own freedom. In loving, we project a new meaning, and that threatens us. But why does he do this? Because recognizing love would require a choice, to admit oneself someone who needs the other. And that is intolerable for someone who has built themselves as self-sufficient. So he lives a split inside. On one side, the desire to keep his freedom intact. On the other, the reality that this freedom has already been breached by you. The result is this everyday contradiction. He runs away, but always returns. He says no, but acts like yes. And the deepest part of this contradiction is that it is not pretense. It is real. He is genuinely confused, because he loves without wanting to love, because he loves without knowing that to love is, inevitably, to cease being who one was. Second sign, when he tries to define you. You are like this. You wouldn't do that. You always. He describes your choices, anticipates your words, reduces your gestures to patterns he understands. It seems caring, but it is containment. This move reveals something profound, an unconscious attempt to turn you into an object. Sartre calls this being in itself, the mode of being of things, fixed, defined. By attempting to fix you, he is actually trying to protect himself, because if you are predictable, he can shield himself from your freedom. Deep down, he is not speaking about you. He is speaking about the image of you that he needs to maintain to avoid collapsing under his own insecurity. Defining the other is a way to avoid the anguish of unpredictability. It's like trying to hold water in one's hands. Closing the fingers more tightly actually makes you lose what you wanted to contain. But this behavior is paradoxically a symptom of deep passion. You only try to control someone you care about. You only need to trap someone who you fear losing. He may not say this out loud. He may even laugh at you when you mention commitment. But pay attention to the details. How he is bothered when you act outside the script he wrote without noticing. How he tries to guide you back to the role he idealized. How he becomes lost when you decide to be someone new. Sartre said, "The other is the one who looks at me and turns me into object." In love, this happens all the time. We fall in love, and without meaning to, want the other to be a mirror, not a window. But there is a turning point. Love matures when we let the other escape our definition. When we accept that they are for themselves, free, mutable, incomplete. It is at that moment that they love you not because they understand you, but because they choose you, even without understanding. And when he defines you, it is because he is still trying not to love fully. But in that effort to control lies the proof that he is already more involved than he imagines. Third sign, when he observes you in silence. Not the silence of disinterest, the silence laden with presence. That instant when he stops talking but continues looking at you. Not out of distraction, but as if you were a question he can't answer. These moments are the most revealing, because real love, when it is authentic, becomes ineffable. It doesn't fit into explanations, nor is it exhausted by obvious gestures. It manifests in the unsaid. Sartre speaks about the look of the other as a mirror of our existence. It is when we are seen that we realize we exist, not as things, but as possibilities. When he looks at you like that, in silence, he is dealing with something that escapes control. You affect him. You change his perception of himself. And he doesn't know exactly what to do with that. The loving gaze does not seek to understand, but to marvel. It is as if each of your movements were a fragment of a puzzle that he wants but can't decipher. Imagine someone standing before a work of art that disturbs them. They can't explain why, but they can't look away. Such is that. Silence. A moment where love reveals itself in its rawest form. Absence of words, total presence. He is not calculating, not seducing, not performing. He is simply being. And that, for someone who fears losing control, is a greater surrender than any declaration. If you have ever experienced that instant when someone simply looked at you without needing to act, speak, or dominate, then you have witnessed up close a love that perhaps even he doesn't yet know how to name, and perhaps never will. Because to truly love is also to fall silent before the freedom of the other. Fourth sign, when he tries to stop you from changing, not with aggressive words, not with direct orders, but with uncomfortable silences, with compliments to your old version, with a look of strangeness when you dare to be someone else. It is as if every transformation you undergo threatened something he believed he understood, and that frightens him. Because the other's change forces us to change too, or at least to reconsider who we are in the face of this new version. Sartre said that to will is to project oneself beyond what one is. Freedom lies in movement, in openness, in the constant possibility of reinventing oneself. But for someone in love who won't admit it, the other's freedom can seem like a threat. If you change, maybe he no longer knows how to love you. Or worse, maybe he realizes that he loves you precisely because he cannot control you. This attempt at containment is not always conscious. Often it appears as nostalgia. You weren't more fun before, or disguised concern. Are you sure that's really the best for you? But deep down, it is fear. Fear of losing the beloved object. Fear of realizing that you are going beyond where he can follow. He wants you to be free, but a freedom that fits into the world he knows. But true freedom is, by definition, a risk. It breaks patterns, dismantles certainties. When he tries to slow your change, it is because he has already been affected. Only those who have something to lose try to contain, and what he has to lose is you. But here is the paradox. To truly love is to allow the other to go beyond, even if it means departing from the image we had of them. Even if it places us before the hardest question, do I love this person, or the idea I made of them? When he tries to prevent you from changing, he is revealing, wordlessly, that he has already been impacted. He has not been the same since you entered his life. And now, he must decide, will he accompany you in the change, or cling to the image he created? Fifth sign, when he shares his nausea with you. It is not about complaining about life, nor about venting trivial problems. It is when he allows himself to expose the void, the absurd, the strangeness of being alive. When he opens a space where the great silences of existence can emerge. Sartre calls this nausea, the radical feeling of perceiving being without justification, without essence, without given meaning. It is the discomfort of being too conscious, too lucid, too alive. And when he shares this with you, he is offering more than trust. He is allowing you to enter the most intimate territory one can access, the abyss of meaning. In that moment, love becomes more than affection. It turns into existential complicity. He is not just in love with your smile or light-hearted conversations. He is in love with your presence at the moment everything seems to collapse. When he says things like, "I no longer know what I want," or "sometimes everything seems pointless," he is tearing the veil of normality. He is inviting you to look with him into the same blind spot of existence. And that, for Sartre, is a gesture of profound authenticity. Most people flee that point. They fill life with distractions, explanations, promises. But he does not. He shows you the nausea, and by doing so, he confides in you something many hide even from themselves. It is in that moment that love stops being performance and transforms into a bond without ties, but with truth. When someone sheds their certainties and shares their nausea, they are saying, "I don't know who I am, but I want to discover it by your side." It is an invitation with no guarantee, a surrender with no manual, and that says everything, because we only show our void to someone we, at heart, wish to remain. Sixth sign, when he tries to impress you and fails. It is that subtle scene. He plans something enthusiastically, chooses words, gestures, surprises, and suddenly realizes it didn't turn out as imagined, that the joke wasn't funny, that the plan fell flat, that the sparkle didn't come. And then, for a brief moment, he shows himself as he is, vulnerable, human, flawed, without defenses. That failure to impress is a mirror of real love, because you only try to impress someone when you wish to be seen, admired, chosen. You only get frustrated when you care, and only those truly in love endure that frustration without fleeing. Sartre speaks of the project as what defines who we are, not by the ideas we have about ourselves, but by the actions we carry out in the world. And by trying to impress you, he is revealing an ongoing project, to be someone worthy of your gaze. The curious thing is that the enchantment lies not in the success of the gesture, but in the moment it collapses, when he laughs at himself, or apologizes, or simply accepts that it didn't work. It is there that you see him for real. Without the mask, without the role, without the narrative he wanted to sustain. That apparent failure reveals a passion more authentic than 1,000 perfect declarations, because it shows he is willing to take risks, to fail, to try again. He could maintain the posture of indifference, the shield of sarcasm, the game of "I don't care," but he doesn't. He exposes himself. And when someone exposes themselves, even stumbling, they express with their body what they may still not be able to say with words. See me. And more than that, accept me, even when I err. That is a love not made of performances, but of presences, of falls and continuities, of attempts that say, "I am here," even without knowing how to be perfect for you. Seventh sign, when he accepts that you leave, not with indifference, not with coldness, but with that dense silence of someone who has understood that love, to be true, needs to be free. This may be the deepest and most painful sign, because it goes against everything the ego wants. The ego wants possession, permanence, guarantees. But authentic love, according to Sartre, is choice. And like every choice, it carries the risk of not being reciprocated. Sartre reminds us that to love is essentially to want to be loved. But the love that survives the ego is the one that accepts even not being so. And that is the most revealing gesture of all. He doesn't need to say he is in love. He shows it. He shows it when he lets you go. He shows it when he forgoes the security of keeping you near to uphold the honesty of letting you leave. If you have ever witnessed that gesture, if someone has ever looked at you with pain, but without imprisonment, then you have been loved in the rarest form of love, the one that prefers your freedom over its own relief. You have just lived through 7 signs that reveal a love he himself may not fully comprehend. But that is there, in the cracks of behavior, in the silences, in the contradictions. When he contradicts himself and doesn't notice when he tries to define you, when he observes you in silence, when he tries to stop you from changing, when he shares his nausea, when he tries to impress you and fails, and when he accepts that you leave. In all those moments he is saying, even if he doesn't know it, that you are more than presence. You are an impact. Jean-Paul Sartre invited us to understand love not as a magical fusion of souls, but as the confrontation between two freedoms. And that hurts, because to be free and to love are movements that collide. To love is to desire to be chosen by someone who is free not to choose you, and yet to continue loving. That demands courage, maturity, and a form of surrender that is not dependency, but recognition. Recap. True love does not seek certainties, it seeks presence. It does not seek control, it seeks companionship. It does not imprison, it liberates. It does not oblige, it invites. And sometimes it appears disguised, in the clumsy attempt to seem indifferent, in the awkward compliment, in the silent farewell, or even in the poorly masked fear of losing you. Because when someone is truly in love, more than they imagine, everything they do carries that excess of meaning. They still lack the words, but they already have affection. They already have surrender. They already have truth. And now, the question that matters. Do you recognize this love? Have you lived this? Have you been that someone who loves without knowing how, who tries to control because they fear losing, who fails when trying to impress, who falls silent when they should declare, who lets go, even wanting you to stay? Love, when it is real, is less about dominion and more about discovery. And perhaps, if you have come this far, you already know. To love is to choose again, to choose despite, to choose even without guarantees. As Sartre said, the important thing is not what they made of us, but what we make of what they made of us. And in love, that means choosing to be, even if unrequited, even without a manual, even without a guaranteed happy ending. Choose to be who you want to be, with or without him. Choose to love with freedom. Choose to love with courage. And if he does everything you heard, maybe he is more in love than he himself can admit. Now it's up to you. Which of these signs have you already lived? Which of them do you recognize in yourself and not in the other? Write it in the comments. Share this reflection with someone who needs to hear it. And above all, choose to live authentically. Because in the end, the truest love is the one that begins with you.